100%. And because then you have that green day and you're like, well, if I had done this with full size, I would have made back a week of losses.
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone, to Be the Trader. Today is a special day because I'm here in Austin, Texas at Matt's place, here with my friend Bryce Toohey. And if you don't know who Bryce is, you need to know, because first off, he's been on the show before, so go watch that previous episode where we share his journey. Because today we're going to kind of catch up with Bryce and see what he's been up to lately. But Bryce has been trading for quite some time. He really focuses on the long side, and I would say a scalper, right? You're a professional scalper. That's what you focus on, right?
Yeah, more or less.
Right? And then OTCs is like the bread, right? The bread and butter.
No, actually, so that was what was working so well for me when the market was like January, February, because OTCs just didn't stop going up, right? But ever since then, for me, I was definitely struggling because, again, it's really tough to scalp an OTC between commissions, and the percent moves down are a little bit too much to handle when you're in and out as fast as I am. So I would say listed longs are like my bread and butter. It's what I really started off becoming profitable on. And then once that market really got hot and I was able to play with bigger size and bigger percentage moves on the OTCs for about 2 months, that was really my big focus. But now we're right back to listed longs.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool that you're switching back and forth. Because like you found success in NASDAQ, but then you went back to OTCs. Why did you go back to OTCs? Well,
so I went back because it made sense to in that market. I mean, it was not unrealistic to see 300%, 400%, 500% runners every day in January and February. And when those kind of percentage moves are there with the liquidity that was going on in that market, it was like, how do I not take this? And to be fair, when I first started trading, I was trying OTCs. I wasn't great at them. But I was learning them because it was kind of right around the time that weed run started, right? Back in 2017, not started, I guess technically the weed run first started in like 2013, 2014, whenever that was. But during 2017, we had that Bitcoin and weed movement in the OT. Oh, actually, no, that was actually 2018, wasn't it? Man, I'm getting all my years confused. But I had such a small account at the time, and it was really hard for me to fully take advantage of them. But that was like my first kind of exposure to the market. So then by the time I had a bigger account, the moves were way bigger than I'd ever seen before. It just made sense to use some size on what was moving the best in the market.
Okay, so would you say like your main focus now is just going after something that has the most volatility?
Actually, no. Okay. So basically my favorite thing is like a multi-day breakout on a listed long, and that can mean obviously what a breakout means. I think we talked about this a while back, but a breakout can mean a lot of things. Okay. My favorite things are consolidation breaks though. So a big former runner that's breaking out of a multi-day consolidation on a listed long. That's like my go-to.
Hey, we wouldn't be able to do these face-to-face interviews if it wasn't for our great sponsor, Cobra Trading. So if you could just give them a few seconds of your time, we'd really appreciate it. Cobra Trading is the broker for short sellers. If you're a short seller and you're looking for the best borrows and the best service in the market, look no further. It's why I use them every single day and why I'm happy to have them as a sponsor. So make sure to click on the link below to learn more about Cobra Trading. And now let's get back to the show. You know, it's cool is I've been following you for quite some time, man. We were friends, I mean, before you even started, doing stocks to trade and so forth. And now I see you trading, and you do sometimes live now as well. Yeah. And you know what's awesome is that you are so open about the days that you don't do well and the days that you do well. Can you explain why that's so important?
Yeah, you know what? It's tough. We are this. I'm gonna call it industry. You know, like this industry we're in it really is full of a lot of people that are only showing like the good days. You'll get on Twitter and you will feel so poorly about yourself because you saw someone that posted a $400,000 a day screenshot, and you go and you click on that profile, and for some reason they don't post for the last 8 days, and it's like, oh, what happened? And it really creates like this false sense of every day is a winning day, and that's just not how it is. And I remember, when I was brand new to this, trying to find the people that provided the best value to me. And those are the ones that were extremely open and just real about, their trading. And that was basically what I want to do now, or what I wanted to do when I got to that level, was like, be real about it. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have days where not only are they red, but they're really red. Yeah. And it sucks.
Yeah. And speaking of that, sorry.
Go ahead.
You said even what you just said is like, not only are you going to have red days, but sometimes you can have red periods of time. And you were so open about that. If you don't know that he also trades live sometimes, or also shares his trade reviews on Stocks to Trade, right?
Yep.
And he'll have like sometimes a week where it's just struggling. And I love that because it shows the reality of trading as well. Like, it's not all sunshine and roses, which is something, dude, I commend you for, man. I love that you do that, because number one, it's not easy to do that, because who wants to share the lot? Like, I get it.
So
I get
hard.
it, right? Like, it's so hard. And then you see people, like, you got to deal with all of that. How did that go? Like, dealing with that mentality of, I'm going to share everything, my losses and my wins. How did that affect you? Did it affect you in any way? And if so, explain.
It was really easy when I was winning a lot. You know what I mean? It was really easy when I was winning a lot. And, to be fair, I have a pretty, because, as we mentioned, I'm a more scalpy trader, and that leads for me to a higher win percentage and generally pretty green weeks and months. But when I go through those red periods, it's not just like, all right, this was a red week, but I still crushed the month. It was, I'm struggling to adapt to this market.
Yep.
And it's probably going to be for more than a week at a time. And, in this September, I went through my biggest red month ever, and that was hard.
Yeah.
But I tried my best every day to come in with a smile and be like, this is what happens. And the hardest part about it was, they're being, sharing this like with everybody, being as transparent as you can. There are a lot of people that are like, thanks for sharing this. But then there are those couple of people that are like, well, you should have bought X, Y, Z and just held. It's like, oh, thanks. Thanks. You know what I mean? Like, and people just don't understand, I guess, that you have to be okay with losing, because if it's part of your strategy, part of your style, you're going to go through those periods. I don't care if you're a scalper, if you're a swing trader, if you hold for, if you're an all-day fader kind of short hold. You're going to have periods where the market does not favor your style. And it just comes down to managing risk and making sure that when it does come back, you can make up those losses, and then I'd say, and then some, but then a lot more. That's profitable trading.
And I love that you said that. For you, as a scalper, you usually have a high win rate, right? And it's so true, because I've known you for quite some time, and I was like, man, Bryce be killing it, I'm like, my man just be growing. But what's really humbled like me too, in my perspective, is watching you going through that hard period. And I was like, man, because Bryce has a high win strategy. I'm like, okay, so I'm struggling right now. I get it. Like, I get it. And we had a conversation.
We did.
I think it was like a couple of nights or 2-3 weeks ago, we talked on the phone, and I was like, man, it's been a little choppy for me. How about you? And you were like, dude, I thought I was the only one.
I remember that conversation. I remember pacing back and forth. I was like, I got to figure this out. We got to figure this out, man. Like, I don't know what's going on, but the market does not like what we are doing.
Yeah, it's so funny. But then it wasn't like I think the day after that, I think you even told me on that call, you were like, you know what, Alex, I'm going to downsize. And I think you already downsized some, but then you're like, I'm going to downsize a little more maybe. I need to understand, I need to adapt. And I heard you say that, and I was like, agreed, right? And then I see you the next week, and you downsized a lot, but then you started to have small wins. And then you would like not size up the next day, but you said, you know what, when the market does shift, I will be sizing back up. And then let like 2-3 weeks later go by, you're getting small wins here and there, and then the market picks up, and what happens? I just start seeing you skyrocket again. So can you explain how you were able to actually make that shift, and when you did make that, I'll ask the next question next. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. And so this is something that I think is very, it's not something that's talked about often, is knowing when to size down, obviously, but then actually doing it. How do you actually do it? Because I have some really good friends of mine who are going through some pretty rough stretches still, because when you tell yourself you're going to size down, you have a nice green day, and then you're like, all right, I've got it back.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like that. You can't go for that instant gratification, and that was the biggest problem for me. So after I got off the phone with you, I said I'm sizing down. I think it took me about another week to actually go through with it. But then once I dropped my size down by about 75%, so really
Listen to what you just said.
75% of what I was using prior. And it was a shift. It was a really tough mental shift.
Humbling, right? It's well, at least for me, I can't speak for you, but ego gets in my way of to downsize.
100%. And because then you have that green day and you're like, well, if I had done this with full size, I would have made back a week of losses.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll just do a size back up tomorrow.
And for me, it was like, I had to go through, I did a lot of looking back at previous red weeks, red months, and seeing, okay, what did I do to get out of them then? And it wasn't 1 week of sizing down, it was 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks of staying with that size. And I think this is very underrated, is confidence is huge in trading. And confidence comes obviously through having those good streaks, but you cannot go from massive red to massive green. And actually I did that. I went on my biggest drawdown ever back the very end of August, and I made it all back and then some in one day. I had a really crazy day, and my confidence was through the roof.
Oh, I bet.
So the market was there for like one day, and I killed that setup, and I was glad. But unfortunately, that the day after is when my next biggest drawdown started, and I doubled that previous drawdown.
Oh man.
And yeah, no, so taking that back, all the way back, using that small size, like, it helps to get that confidence back the right way.
Yeah.
By getting those small wins, small wins, small wins. Because what I've learned is that a lot of times it's not that the market isn't favoring your setup, it's that your setup is less present. And when you go in with smaller size, it's almost like you care less about making money. You care more about taking a few trades on the right setups. And you'll all of a sudden notice, okay, well, I'm doing this with a small size, getting small wins. I'm only taking a couple trades a day. I like this. This feels good. And then you can tell. It's instant. You know when your setup comes back. And it was actually basically when the market got really hot with DWAC. I was like, okay, all right, we can start using size again. And the next week was when I just slapped size. And I've actually sized back down since then because the market has not favored me. And I'm still, you know, just slowly grinding now, waiting for those setups to come back. So I'm trying to practice the right principles now that I learned through that drawdown with smaller size by avoiding a bigger drawdown.
Dude, that was gold right there. First off, I love, if you need to go rewind that entire explanation and listen to it on slow-mo and install that into your brain. And I need to do the same thing. Like that was awesome, man. And you mentioned confidence and how important that is in trading. And I think this is something that, because people just automatically think like, hey, Bryce, you like that breakout consolidation? I do too. You know what? Show me that strategy and I'm going to be successful. And they learn it, but they're not successful. And I think a lot of that has to do with confidence in your trading, right?
Yep.
And you're someone who's already consistent, and then when your confidence comes down, because everyone's confidence comes down at some point when you get hit in the face, right? And then you got to build it back up. Shows that even if you're already consistent, you still need to be focused on your confidence level and making sure that you can pull the trigger when your trade is there and go at it, you know, and attack.
100%.
When you talk to traders, because now I know you talk to a lot of traders, especially when you're coaching people or explaining like your trades live, what have you found is like maybe a lot of newbie traders' mistakes when it comes to like this last market we just experienced?
Oh man, do you mean like this last market as in like the last?
I would say like the last like 2 months where it was like chopped for a little bit before DWAC.
Before DWAC, okay, perfect. I'd say honestly the biggest problem is almost being stuck in the past. Like people are so stuck on that one big win they had, and they're like, well, I have to have another one of these. And so you go from a lot of traders I've learned, no matter how new or, well, I shouldn't say no matter how experienced, but everyone has a setup that they do prefer. Once you kind of got the basics down, you understand like, okay, this works. What most newer traders don't have is that ability to stop trading everything else that isn't working. Like OTCs for me.
Yes.
I knew to stop trading those when I started losing on them because the momentum wasn't there. And as a momentum-based trader, I'm following where the momentum's at. Today, most of my money was made on large caps. Well, mid caps and large caps. But anyways, it's the same type of daily setup for me. So anyways, back to that, these newer traders, I've noticed most of the time, it's attacking really weird day one gap ups to the long side that they know, everyone knows is gonna be a chop fest. They're the ones you normally want to avoid, long and short.
Yes.
But they're like this, it's just like this shining piece of gold for some reason, because it's the one thing that gapped up and it's just stuck in this really weird range. Those for me are clear avoids. I know I've got no edge there. But as a new trader, I see a lot of them saying, well, this is the top percent gainer. So like, I'm going to trade it. And it's just, you need to get away from that and understand that when your setup isn't there, do nothing. I can't tell you more often, like in the past 2 months, I've found myself taking, maybe 1 or 2 trades a day. We're back in like January, February, I think I averaged 15 to 20 trades a day. And so like that, a lot. And like, this is like the least I've ever traded before. And it's because of that discipline come back. So I guess, long story short, discipline is that number one thing, to stick to that one setup that works really well for you.
You said during that explanation, first off, that was great. But then you also said that, I was trading mid caps and large caps, but the same daily setup. That rings a bell for me. So like when you're trading your small caps or OTCs, whatever it is, you're still looking for that, at least that big picture setup that you enjoy to trade, right?
Yep.
And then you look in the smaller time frames. I'm assuming this, but you correct me. You're looking on the smaller time frames for some type of structure to form, so that way you can take it, because you're looking at the big picture in mind that there should be movement in your direction, right?
Yep, 100%.
Okay, and that intraday picture could be anything. It could be a consolidation breakout. It could be an ascending triangle. Anything similar, as long as it has structure to risk reward.
Yep.
Right. So, do you feel that setups should you be mainly focused on the big picture, or should you mainly focus on, because I have found a lot of people will focus on just intraday. So I'm just curious, like, where your head's at.
Perfect. Oh, this is my favorite thing. And this is probably the number one thing I feel I can feel myself repeating every time I'm asked, like,
okay.
What, yeah, like so this is perfect.
Okay, good.
So, going back to basically when, I'm helping out newer traders, my number one thing I always say is start with the daily chart. And it's funny because I was always told that by, one of my earlier mentors, and I never understood it. It's like, what do you mean? The intraday is so nice. Well, if the daily chart doesn't suggest a move, a daily chart will tell you if the stock should move in one direction or the other. It will, for me, determines bias, bearish or bullish. Bias, bearish or bullish. That worked. That was weird. And so, for me, I need to start on the daily chart. And so I want to see patterns like a breakout, or I would start off, is this a breakout or a bounce style trade?
Right.
And then I play that accordingly. What kind of breakout is it? Is it an all-time high breakout? Is it a consolidation breakout, multi-day week breakout? And then I'm going into the intraday. Is this a consolidation break out of a range near VWAP? Is it a high of day break? Is it et cetera, et cetera? But I'm always shifting my attention to the daily chart. In fact, my charting setup is always intraday on top, daily chart on bottom, because I need to see what that daily chart is like.
Yeah.
I need to see more than just the intraday. I want to see structure. Like, for example, we've had BKKT being a pretty wild mover recently, and now it's been stuck in this range where there's been no suggestion that it's going to break out or down. And so treating it as a bigger picture trade on any of the past 3 days has been there's been no reason to. But it's been really on everyone's radars that I talk to. And this is just an example, of course, but for me, there's no reason. Like, I look at that chart, that daily chart, and I say, well, there's no reason for this to move. It's not breaking a range. It's not breaking down. It's not breaking out. Why would I want to touch this? And so it's the same theory applies to small caps, mid caps, large caps, whatever it is. You need to check that daily chart to see if there is a reason for it to move in either direction.
I love that, because the big picture matters so much, and the way you explained it is, I like that you said that it's because the big picture suggests that it has a move available, right?
A potential.
A potential move, whether it's down or up. There's at least a potential move here, because I mean the way I see it is the daily is the best information in my opinion, because that's where the most people are, right? Like that's all the volume is, right? It's all in that one day. So you also said that you get that question a lot, and that whenever people ask you that, you always say, just go back to the daily, go back to the daily. Is there any suggestions on because I know there's traders out there who may trade and do well, like throughout every day and trading all the in between, right? And I know I've met traders that way. I'm sure you have too. How do you keep yourself or suggest others to keep themselves from, okay, well, I know I'm good at this, but I see him doing this and it's all, intraday stuff and there's no big picture. So I need to do that too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, yeah. And so I guess the way I would say that is like, are you saying they see me like playing all this intraday action?
Yeah, they see you playing your setup, right?
Yeah.
But then you might see, maybe you have a buddy, maybe Matt, right? Maybe he trade. I know he doesn't trade like this, but maybe he's trading everything that maybe something you don't like, right? Maybe in the daily there is no breakout, there is no formation of something suggestion on what you're looking for, but yet you see, Matt over here just killing it, every day in the middle of it, right? In the channels.
In those channels.
How do you prevent yourself from saying, no, I don't want to do that, and also keep the balance of, I do want to grow?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
For sure. Well, for me,
or even thinking about that, because what works is working. So why, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so for me, I guess it would be like, the way I avoid that personally is I know that as a breakout trader, and like I mentioned earlier too, like there are so many different kinds of breakouts. I don't want anything that's stuck in a channel because there are so many breakout potentials every day. Whereas I know a lot of traders who actually do really well trading those channels.
Right.
But for me, I personally just don't see it, and I have enough breakout options as it is for the most part that I don't even need to be worried about that yet. If I ever want to expand my edge, maybe, but honestly, the first thing I want to learn how to do is short. So no, it's just like knowing what works for me, and really just having the discipline to avoid it until I'm ready to learn how to do it.
You said something earlier that I'm now bringing back. It just hit me while you were answering that, and that was, you said that when you looked back at the hard times, you would analyze and see how you got out of it, and you noticed that it took sometimes weeks, maybe a month or so, right? But you also mentioned that in the times that you started to downsize, that after you noticed that you downsize and then you wanted to be very selective, because at that point, why try to push if you're just downsize? So it doesn't matter if you win or lose really. So you're really focused on hitting the right plays.
Right.
So you recognize that you're only hitting a couple, right? Instead of like 15 in one day. So when that happened, when you got your groove back, let's just say, did you go back to like 15, you know what I'm saying? Or would you say it's a result of you just got more discipline from those lessons and now you try to only do like limited, like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, a big part of the reason I was trading like that many was because of the market. Yeah, 100%. But when my confidence is higher, like I do find myself taking a few more trades, not necessarily gunslinging it by any means, but like I see things that I almost was blinded by during like a drawdown phase, because I just get so narrow-minded when I'm going through a really tough time that it's only about the money, and that's when I know I need to really dial it back. But yeah, it's a mix of both the market and the confidence getting it back. So like when I'm, now I'm probably taking close to 8 or 9 trades a day. Which is kind of that's like that healthy medium for me, for the way I trade personally.
But you also just said that when it comes to whenever you are blinded by certain trades because of the mood that you're in, right? Can you explain what you mean by that? And because other traders, they like, for example, this hit me today, and I don't know if this is what you mean, but I was in a trade and I took a loss. And then usually, and it happened for just like maybe 2 minutes, maybe I get frustrated for a moment and be like, man, you know what? Like, that was my setup. That should have worked. I get into that mindset. But then the old me would be like, get in that mindset and then ignore the ticker. And then now the new me is like, let me sit here and calmly wait, and it could reset up. Because I used to be blind to that and miss the move. So can you explain what I'm trying to say there? Because you brought that up, and that's what made me think about.
Yeah, and that's basically a perfect explanation. Is there will be a ticker that has a beautiful daily setup, and when I'm in a losing streak, in a losing mindset, I'll take that setup probably early, because again, I'm trying to force the entry, and I'll take a loss on it. And when I'm in that wrong mindset, I don't even want to look at the ticker anymore. I'm like, I took a loss, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
When I'm in a winning mindset, probably took even if I took that trade, probably took a smaller loss. I was probably sized smaller if I was going to be early, because I've got no issue being early if I'm with small size to kind of get a feeler for it.
Yep.
And I'll wait for it. If I know that daily chart is right, I'm going to wait around. Even if it never sets up intraday, I'm going to be there for it in case it does. When I'm in a losing mindset, I just go to the next ticker and try to find the next shiny object, basically.
Right. Isn't that weird? If you're in a loser's mindset, you're looking for the next winner.
Yep.
And when but it's like it's weird.
And the biggest problem is most of the time you know what that winner already is when you're in the, like, you already know it. You already know the right setup when it's there on the daily chart. But when you're in the wrong mindset and you take that loss on it, all you want to do is focus on something else because it didn't work. No, you're probably just early and you didn't give it enough time. And if it never comes up, it never comes up. But I'm going to be there in case it does when I'm in the right mindset.
But when it comes to like making sure that you stay in that right mindset, because when you take losses and you keep taking losses, like, it's tough to stay into the right mindset to be open and available. Because let's say it is your setup and you're doing well, but you trade it twice and you take 2 losses. But it is still your setup. Maybe you were a little early, because the hardest part in trading is timing, right? You can't really time the move all the time, but you can have indications that shows it's going to move. So if you have bad timing and you're taking a couple of losses, but you're sizing appropriately, so they're small, how do you prevent that to get into your ego of like, man, I'm starting to lose my feel for this setup or what it may be, and continue to attack it again? Yeah,
so this is actually kind of an interesting thing, and I'm going to do a little side story that relates really well to this. When I was going through, September 2021 was my big drawdown for me, and what I ended up looking back at it, what I noticed is I was actually trading the setups very appropriately on the entries.
Yeah.
However, when the market changed where the follow through that I was used to wasn't there, I was basically having to go for smaller moves and wasn't accepting it. And so that's what I noticed is my timing is generally very good. I normally have the right entry spots. It's the exit that I struggle most with during a drawdown, because normally that means I'm probably holding on for too long because I'm trying to make too much. I'm trying to make more money because I want to get out of the drawdown.
Right.
And then what I end up doing is after the trade worked, I didn't take any off and it comes all the way back down. I'm a lot less likely to cut it when I should, end up taking a bigger loss, and that spiral just keeps happening. So like, kind of back to the question is like, you're a bit, wait, how did you frame that question?
It was more of like, in terms of how is it that you stay in the right mindset to be able to attack it again? Maybe you take a couple losses.
Well, and so I was actually talking about this exact thing with Matt today, and a mix of what I was just saying here. But the way I now stay in the right mindset and what I learned from September is for me personally, this is very personal, but I have started scaling out of trades, because that at least helps me know if my setup is going to be less effective, at least I've taken profits. So now I'm taking some off along the way. It's like almost you need to adapt to obviously you need to adapt to the market. And that's helped my mindset like crazy, because I'm still actually having the same issue with follow through that I had in September in this current market. Again, the week when DWAC was hot, different story. Everything was straight up, but now we're back to that kind of pop and drop for me. And so my way of adapting and keeping my mindset in the right spot has been scaling out of trade. So you have to find what works for you. It depends on your strategy, depends on your style. Maybe you're holding losses too long. Maybe you're just simply being too stubborn. Maybe you take that one loss and you walk away. But for me now, like when I'm getting in a spot and if it's not right, I probably have small size to start. If I know, you need to know if you're going to be early. Yeah. And it's a mental battle. It really is. You got to go through all these different variables of what's affecting your trading and break it down piece by piece. Am I early? If so, okay, if I'm consistently early, either one, the hardest part is to wait, right? We know that because no one likes FOMO. Because then the one time you wait, that spot was actually perfect. So right every time. So use smaller size there. That way, if you do take the loss, it's going to be smaller. That will help your mindset a lot. I would rather have a smaller win and been part of the move than to have been like, well, I don't want to be a part of it at all. For me as a scalper, I don't want to be overly patient. I'm going to attack. And then again, taking pieces off into the move has been a big part of what's helped me.
But if you're in small, let's say they take that advice, and I get it, and I 100% agree, because I actually struggle with this, and this is why I'm asking this question, see how you deal with this. But like, if you get in small because you're like, I may be early, but then it just rockets, right? And you have a quarter of your position that you wanted, okay? So ideally, it's just not great for you. And so when it goes up, are you still playing that size the same you are with full size?
100%.
And taking profits the same way? Like
100%.
Even if it's a quarter, you're taking half, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. So basically the way I've been doing it is even if I get a quarter size, that happened today with, actually it was on BKKT. I was treating it as a scalp because I knew it was in the range, but I liked the setup that I had. I only got, I think it was about a third of the shares I wanted. And I was like, that sucks, but it's fine. So what I do is into the first powerful move, I take off half for now. And then, I mean, I was piecing out at one point like 50 shares at a time. Like it is what it is. You know what I mean? One of the biggest things that's helped me, and I remind myself of this every day I'm in a trade, I want to treat this trade like I have one share. You know what I mean? If you have one share, well, I guess you can't scale out that. Pretend you have 10 shares, 3 shares, right? Like treat it like that, because that way, again, assuming you're respecting your risk, you're not going to be nervous about how high it goes. You're going to just treat it like you have baby size and scale out accordingly. Like, you know, or maybe for you that means hold it to its max potential. For me, it means like, all right, now I can scale out. If I have 3 shares, I can scale out 3 times. Where do I want to scale out into?
Speaking of scaling, before we start to wrap this up, you brought that up a couple of times. And whether it's scaling out and maybe scaling in as well, any suggestions for people when it comes to scaling? Because it's very, for me, I'm still working on that myself, because I feel like for me personally, it's like an art and a science.
It is.
And so I'm very curious from your perspective, can you explain scaling and how it's not like just super easy, or maybe it is? Like, can you explain that, and what makes it easier, or how can someone scale, and what kind of mindset do they need to make it easier for them?
For sure. Scaling can be a blessing and a curse depending on how you do it. For me in this market with less follow through, it's actually probably less effective. I'm getting smaller wins than I would if I just held my entire position to the top. But when the follow through is there, scaling is powerful, because let's say, right, I take my entry full size, I get my half off, and then maybe I need to take another half off after that, and I'm left with a quarter. Now I still have a quarter of my position left, and I'm able to see, is this trade going to reset up for another entry where I can add back, maybe not full size, but I should have a new risk level, right? So now I can add more size at another confirmation spot, but I've already have a quarter from a way better average that I can keep scaling out into another push. Now, like I said, in this market, I don't have a lot of opportunities to re-add till I get that pop and it just drops. But it's a way for me to almost prepare for when the market does get hotter, where sure, you could just take full size, wait for that move to happen, new risk level set, and re-add with a new risk level. That's great, but for me, I'm going for those higher win percentage trades. So doing that is not going to be a higher win percentage, higher risk reward for sure. But I want to get as best of a mix of both as I can. And so for me, it's a blessing being able to take profit. And then that way, if the trade collapses, at least I've taken a decent portion off. But if it resets up, now I can add with a position from earlier and be able to scale out into that next push. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes total sense.
But it's hard to do. It's definitely hard if you're someone.
It's an art too.
It's an art for sure. And for me, it's just taking off into abnormal strength. I don't have necessarily specific price targets, especially on ones that are popping a lot faster than I expected. Of course, I mark out my support and resistance and everything of areas I would really want to be taking pieces off into, but it's not easy. It's learning to scale was a process for me. I mean, it took me probably 3 months to be able to do it effectively. And I don't really have anything I can
practice.
It's just practice. It's if you want to learn how to scale, start doing it with smaller size, like size down to learn how to scale. Take your entry, and again, the way I do it, I take half off into the first big move. And when I first started learning to scale, I was actually taking about probably 75% off. And I'm trying to basically just work on maybe now getting that down to 30 or 40%. And for me, it's just a way of teaching myself how to hold longer, because even though I do scalp, I still do want to go for those bigger moves, right? And it's hard to do And the reason I do this, I was talking again to Matt earlier, is because the worst thing for me is being in a trade where my entry is here and I think the trade has potential to go to here, but I sell here. And then I just watch it keep running and I'm like, I should be in this.
Yeah.
So eventually I want to get to the spot where my scaling out maybe starts at 10 to 20%. Yeah. But the way, you can't just do that right away for me. I want to take off bigger and then smaller. And eventually I'll get to the spot where I've got enough conviction to take off a little bit, most of my position. And then, you know, the last chunk. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And what I love about that is that, Bryce, you're already consistent. You're already doing well. And yet you're explaining how you're slowing down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you're slowing down to stay consistent, or to make sure, like, I know how to trade already. I see that I want to scale and improve on scaling, but I'm not just going to jump from 0 to 100.
Right.
Just because I know how to trade. I'm going to take my time so I can get comfortable with this.
And that was unfortunately the lesson I learned in September. Is I was like, I'm done scaling out little bits at a time. I'm scaling out most at the top. Yeah. You know, well, unfortunately the top never came in, you know? Yeah. So now it's like, okay, let's actually slow it down. I'm still doing well for myself. I'm happy with how I'm trading. So it's like, why try to be more aggressive in a market that, in my opinion, doesn't favor follow through? When I could learn the right process of scaling now still, even though there's not a lot of follow through, for when the market gets really hot, now maybe that's when I'll start taking off maybe 20% first, when that follow through is really there.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Bryce, look, it's awesome, man. I love that I'm finally meeting you in person.
I know, this is the first time. We've been talking.
We talked all the time on phone calls and everything, and now we finally meet in person. He's way taller than me. He's like double my size. We'll probably take a picture and I'll post it on social media. But the thing is, man, let people know where they can meet you, where they can learn more about you, anything like that. Let them know now. Yeah, for sure. I am on Twitter as Trader Bryce, and I trade with small cap rockets on Stocks Trade. We do go live every morning as of right now, right on the Stocks Trade YouTube channel. Those are probably the best places you can find me: Stocks Trade YouTube, and my Twitter, my personal Twitter, Trader Bryce. Awesome. And sometimes in Colorado. He's always in Colorado. So. Yeah, I am basically once a month, it seems like. Actually, no Colorado trips planned until like next year now. Okay. Until 2012. Next year is like a month away. It doesn't matter. Well, look, Bryce, hey, appreciate it, man. Dude, thank you so much for having me on, man. Absolutely. Thank you.